Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Christopher Aaron. It is August 29th, early in the morning, and I want to look at where the value is in the precious metals sector. I want to look at the different components within the precious metals sector and look at some relative value propositions. So this is for people who may be considering diversifying within the sector. They may be already having enough physical gold and silver, or they're looking to add some leverage to that. I want to show you where I think the value is right now in the sector. Now, of course, this is going to depend on your individual situation. So let's start by looking at the prices of the metals themselves here for the last 3 days. So gold has been in this consolidation in the low to mid 1500s. It's holding strong for now, but we are at and approaching significant resistance here in gold. And then silver, we compare sometimes short term to look at the intra-week price action, and notice how silver making new highs on Tuesday and new highs today on Wednesday, whereas gold has not. So we've seen that compression in the gold to silver ratio, and it's just at that point. Silver is just at that point. Remember, we were talking over the last several weeks about this 1850 resistance level. So we've gotten there actually quicker than I even thought we would. And so the question is, at this point, do you chase the move in gold? Do you chase the move in silver? I want to give you some things for consideration. This is consideration. So let's talk about another component within the precious metals sector and the value which may or may not exist in the various components of this sector. So let's talk about the senior gold miners first. This is the GDX Senior Miners Fund here, and we are always looking from late 2015 through the present. This was the last significant bottom, and where are we now? Now, we will bring up this handy key here so we have a reference for all the colors. And this is why I think there is some value to consider in the gold and silver miners. If you think about the move, the 2016 move here, for example, okay, gold rose here from the bottom in 2015 to its peak. It was a 30% move, right? It moved from just over 1,000 to 1,375 or so. It was about a 30% move. And if you look at the y-axis here, a lot of the gold miners moved from, let's say, 12.5 up to 31. That is almost a 200% move, okay, relative to that 30% move in the price of gold. And now we look at the GDX and the senior miners. This is the large cap. These are the gold miners, the largest gold miners in the world that are digging the metal out of the ground. And we look at where they are, right? They've just gotten back to their 2016 peak. Now, we know that the large cap miners are lagging the price of gold, but they've gotten back to their 2016 peak. And so the question is, do you chase at this point, do you chase the large cap miners higher? Okay, that's the question. I want to bring in some propositions for value, things that you may consider if you already have enough gold or enough silver in the physical form, or if you're looking for leverage, if you're looking to try to hit a home run. Let's think about it. If gold goes to $2,000 an ounce, or let's say it even doubles from here, from $1,500 to $3,000. Can we imagine that? A doubling in the price of gold. That would be great. But what do you think would happen to the valuation of these miners if gold goes up by 100%? If these miners moved up 200% in a 30% move higher in the price of gold, what do you think would happen if the price of gold went up 100% itself? I think these miners would go up 3, 4, 500% even from here. So the question is if you think something like that is going to happen, it's a proposition. I'm not guaranteeing that's going to happen. I'm saying if you think that is going to happen, where is the value right now in the gold and silver sector, relatively speaking? And so we just looked at the GDX, and now we're looking at the GDXJ. This is a junior miners fund. It's a bit of a misnomer because it really contains a lot of mid-cap, mid-tier miners. But let's call it a junior mid-tier fund. And we look at, relatively speaking, the GDXJ Look at how far below the relative 2016 peak this fund is compared to the GDX, compared to the large cap miners. So this fund, all things considered, is 17% undervalued. And I propose to you that if one is looking for leverage, this is a misallocation in the market. This is an inefficiency in the market where some of the junior mining companies are undervalued relative to the senior miners. I mean, think about it. They're all sitting on the same amount of gold, plus or minus. And yes, some of the miners have extracted gold over the last 3.5 years, and some of the miners have had to issue more debt or more shares. But a lot of the miners with that debt and shares, they've gone out and they've found more gold in the meanwhile. So all things considered, why is it that the junior and the mid-tier companies are still significantly below the 2016 peak, but the senior miners are already at the 2016 peak? Once again, I propose that the mid-tiers and the juniors are undervalued, and I think there's an opportunity here. Now, this doesn't mean to necessarily plow all in all at once. We might want to wait for a bit of a pullback here, but I think the value relatively speaking is in the juniors relative to the seniors. Let's switch over and let's talk about silver. Now, we know that silver is not back at the 2016 peak yet. However, this is where to be an investor, to be a speculator, which, by the way, if someone says you're a speculator, I say yes, wholeheartedly. I admit it. And in my opinion, a speculator, that is a favorable term. That's someone who looks at the sum of the information in the world and attempts to make educated guesses on what will happen in the future. I think we're all speculators, to put it bluntly. Even people who stack the metals. We're all speculating on a future which is, let's admit it, unknown. And so if we're going to go down that path and we're going to say, hey, gold is already above its 2016 peak, the senior miners are already at their 2016 peak, the junior miners are lagging a little bit, where are the silver miners, the large cap silver miners? Relatively speaking, they are 62% below their 2016 peak, and I think this represents near-term potential. When I look at this chart, I'm just going to let you know. So we bought the silver mining fund here, this exact one. We bought it several weeks ago in the earlier part of this consolidation here. So we have a profit on this already, but I think there's a lot more potential in this. When I look at this chart, I'll just tell you, this kind of grinding decline here in the silver miners, there's not significant resistance here in the SIL fund. And I think this thing could shoot fairly quickly higher, at least up to some of the Fibonacci retracement levels here, or this horizontal resistance around 41. So I think there is near-term potential in the silver miners. And let's take it one step further. Let's say you wanted even more leverage, and we look at the junior silver miners, and we look that, relatively speaking, the junior silver miners are 69% below the 2016 peak. Once again, you have to be willing to say that we have an unknown future. We don't know 100% that silver is going to follow gold higher. But if we connect the dots, and if we are right about that, then there is a lot more potential here in the junior silver miners than in the large cap gold miners. That's what I'm talking about from a risk to reward perspective. Now, one final step further, and let's say you really want to dig in and you want to try to hit a home run. Here's what I'm going to present to you. So this is a fund, this is an ETF, and we see the potential here to get back to this 2016 highs. 69% gain it would be. If we switch over, now for full disclosure, this is a company that I already own. Be interesting to see if you can figure out what it is. I've blocked the names of the company here. This is a company that I already own. It is a silver miner. They've been producing silver for the last 13 years. And relatively speaking, this company is a full 165% below its 2016 peak. So this is the kind of thing that we talk about, just to let you know if you're interested. Now, I'm not giving away the names to the specific companies for two reasons. There's a lot of research that goes into this, and secondly, I think it would be irresponsible. I think people that just publish one name and say, hey, buy this now. Well, what about a week from now? What about one of its mines fails or blows up or there's a casualty? Or what if they fail to secure funding? I do not think it's responsible to just give a name of one company. So that's why I gave those funds. If you want to own an average of 30 or 40 silver miners, you can choose those funds. Or the gold miners, you can choose those funds. Please be careful about the timing. If you want to know more about the individual companies that we are investing in here, that is the premium service that we publish here. It's called Precious Metals Intelligence. We publish all the research and the timing components of that. I think there's a major opportunity in some of the undervalued silver miners at this point. We also do members-only videos just like this. And the last one that went out covered not only the mining sector, but also gold, also silver, and also the U.S. stock market, which is at a critical juncture. For individuals who would like, if you would like to speak to me in person, just know I take no funds or fees from any of the companies that we're talking about here. None of the dealerships, none of the ETFs, none of the mining companies are paying me to do this. We are an independent firm here, and I simply look out for the best interest of individuals. So if you would like to speak one-on-one, if you have a significant portfolio, or if you are just getting started in the metals and you'd like to speak for half an hour or an hour with someone who's independent, know that you can reach me on the consultations tab on the website. Make sure to hit the big red subscribe button because these metals are picking up steam right now. If you really look at it, silver has moved about $2 in the last 2.5 weeks. I mean, if it continues doing that, we'll be back at $50 in, sometime in the middle of 2020. So I would tell you, all things considered, I suspect we will not consider moving up $2 every couple weeks. I think at this point, silver is getting ready for a pullback. So please be careful over the short term. We see that the gold miners are at major 2016 resistance, but the silver miners, after a little bit of a pullback, it looks like they have some clear sky ahead of them. It looks like there's not a whole lot of resistance on that chart. I will just tell you until some significantly higher prices. So this is what I'm doing. I simply publish the research that I'm doing. I hope you find some value in it. I'll be back this time next week, and we'll take a deeper look at some of the metals themselves next week. Thank you. See you then.